Welcome to Anatomy of a Song. Today we are analyzing the frantic romantic architecture of Sleep on the Floor by the Lumineers. On its face, it feels like a triumphant road trip anthem. But underneath the driving rhythm lies an urgent, desperate ultimatum about escaping a town that consumes its use. Let's look at the blueprint.
You know the physical sensation. The walls of the town you grew up in suddenly feel like they are creeping inward, and you realize that staying put guarantees permanent stagnation. The Lumineers capture this exact breathless instant of realization in their track Sleep on the Floor. The driving, upbeat folk rock style masks a blunt, open road truth. It rejects nostalgia in favor of a raw confession. You are caught between the stifling safety of the known environment and the terrifying possibility of the unknown everywhere else. The opening lines offer a single brutal remedy. Physical distance and immediate, sudden departure are the only cures for a life that has become a trap. The song rejects the myth of waiting for the perfect time to leave. If you wait until you are fully ready, you will never move. The only time to abandon a sinking ship is right now. The lyrics skip any grand philosophical debates and get straight to the physical mechanics of the getaway. Wesley Schultz sings, "Pack yourself a toothbrush, dear. Pack yourself a favorite blouse." There is no grand packing montage. Grabbing two intensely mundane, intimate items makes the decision visceral and real, rather than a distant fantasy. Then comes the financial point of no return. As this visualization shows, the moment your bank balance drops to zero, the safety net snaps. Emptying that account removes the option of failure, representing a total, irreversible severing of the hometown safety net. True escape requires absolute dedication. You cannot crawl back to a life you have actively stripped of its resources. Executing the departure requires absolute stealth. If you hesitate, someone will try to talk you out of it. The instructions continue. Leave a note on your bed. Let your mother know you're safe. Slipping out in the dark inflicts a heady dose of emotional collateral damage. There is an unavoidable guilt inherent in abandoning loved ones in the dead of night. The next line provides the defense mechanism, and by the time she wakes, will have driven through the state. The upbeat, driving acoustic tempo mirrors this exact speed. The music acts as the getaway car, pushing them across state lines before guilt can hit the brakes.
Notice how the percussion starts to accelerate right here. The lyrics moves from a quiet whisper to a grand, almost desperate survival plan. The narrator is laying out a choice: leave everything behind tonight, or stay and watch your future die in this town. Let's look at how the melodic structure creates the feeling of a ticking clock.
Relentless forward momentum is the only mechanism capable of overcoming the emotional gravity trying to pull you back home. The adrenaline of the open road eventually hits the imposing, claustrophobic reality of the massive destination city. Arriving in the Metropolis, the singer notes that when they looked outside, they couldn't even see the sky. The vastness of the architecture breeds immediate isolation. The cinematic lens of the song shifts here. The singer refuses to sell a perfect utopian dream, choosing instead to acknowledge the impending urban disasters. The lyrics bring in the grit. If the sun don't shine on me today, and if the subways flood and bridges break. These lines confront the fact that poverty, elemental hardship, and transient struggles are actively waiting for this couple in the city. The true cost of freedom is facing a harsh, unromanticized reality completely stripped of hometown insulation. Amidst this urban chaos, the singer issues an ultimatum to his partner. Will you lay yourself down and dig your grave, or will you rail against your dying day? This brings us to the core metaphor of the title, Sleep on the Floor. Sleeping on the floor symbolizes the conscious choice to embrace transient discomfort and poverty over a suffocating routine. The raw, acoustic driving rhythm of the Lumineers builds to this exact demand. It asks you to fight fiercely to stay alive. It is a greater victory to struggle and rail against your dying day on the hard concrete of your own freedom than to comfortably decay in the safety of the town where you were born.
This brings us to the core emotional paradox of the song's design. The music swells with hope, but the lyrics reminds us of the cost of escape. Leaving behind family, graves and history, it forces us to ask if running away actually brings freedom, or just a new kind of isolation. Watch how the visual arrangement captures the tension.
Most listeners hear an acoustic guitar and imagine a bohemian romance. The reality is a gritty blueprint for economic survival, a calculated, desperate evacuation. The Lumineers utilize an upbeat acoustic aesthetic that often hides the song's intent. Beneath the tambourines and cellos lies a checklist for escaping a life that has become a dead end. This is not a road trip to find oneself. It is a timed exit strategy designed to outrun a collapse. The opening lyrics establish a severe inventory of what remains. Pack yourself a toothbrush, dear. Pack yourself a favorite blouse. A toothbrush maintains biological hygiene. A favorite blouse preserves individual identity. Every other possession is discarded to ensure they can move fast enough to leave. The narrator demands a withdrawal slip to take all the savings out. This is the process of liquidating institutional safety, turning years of digital security into vulnerable physical cash. These actions represent a literal severing of economic ties. Once the account is zeroed, they have reached a financial point of no return. This extreme departure is completely driven by the environment they are leaving. The hometown functions as a geographic and psychological trap, where every street is a reminder of stagnation. The narrator describes looking outside and being unable to even see the sky. The local environment has physically blotted out the horizon, effectively ending their ability to imagine a future. Staying behind offers a stark choice between two forms of economic suffocation: relying on the handouts of grieving parents, or surrendering to the physical erosion of manual labor just to pay the rent. Small communities often anchor residents through institutional control, using local religious dogma and social guilt to prevent anyone from leaving. The narrator rejects this directly, telling his partner to forget what Father Brennan said because they were not born in sin. This deconstruction of theology is a required psychological step. They cannot physically leave until they stop believing they owe the town their presence. The lyrics warn that staying equates to drowning. Shedding local guilt becomes a mandatory, life-saving mechanism for survival. The actual severance from their past relies on a handwritten note left on the bed. Leaving a note is an efficient way to avoid a confrontation. It is a final, one-way communication that allows for a clean break. The narrator needs to avoid the emotional gravity of his partner's mother. By avoiding a face-to-face conversation, he prevents her from intervening in their plan. They weaponize physical transit to ensure the success of their evacuation. By the time the mother wakes, the narrator calculates, they will have driven through the state, using distance to outrun the reach of familial guilt. Driving through the night minimizes the chance of pursuit. They are using the darkness to slip away before the town can react. Survival in this context is not a victimless act. It requires a willingness to inflict sudden pain on those left behind to secure a path forward. The narrator holds no illusions about their destination. He is not promising a happy ending, only a different set of challenges. The lyrics deliver a sober reality check about the physical and economic state of the city they are driving toward. He explicitly references failing infrastructure, asking what will they do if the subways flood. He mentions the threat of bridges break, a reference to structural failures that jeopardize their physical safety in this new environment. Their escape route leads them directly into urban poverty and systemic collapse. This chart models the statistical likelihood of surviving in a collapsing city. It tracks cost of living increases against a flatlining minimum wage trajectory. Eventually, the lines cross. Their financial reserves hit zero, and they are left with no safety net in a city falling apart. The characters are trading a quiet death in their hometown for a violent, exhausting fight for survival in a different kind of trap. When the money is gone and the city fails, the song presents its core existential ultimatum. They must decide whether to lay down and dig a grave or rail against the dying day. This choice defines their relationship. Survival here is a relentless struggle that leaves no room for the romantic tropes of a typical runaway story. The narrator demands that his partner put on your dress and decide on us. He's calling for a trauma bond, where the dress becomes a form of armor used to face an environment that offers them nothing else. They are formalizing a desperate alliance, stripped of tradition, money, or community support. Their commitment is a pact between two people bracing for impact against a harsh world. The title, Sleep on the Floor, defines the specific physical sacrifice required to maintain this version of freedom. Personal agency is paid for by severing the safety nets and roots that provided comfort and security in the past. Sleeping on the floor represents the literal physical discomfort of choosing a life without institutional support. This animation illustrates the trade. They accept poverty and the loss of stability in exchange for one specific outcome. By accepting the floor, the characters secure their agency. They trade the security of home and family for the ability to make their own choices. The reality of this evacuation is that controlling your own fate offers no protection from the consequences of that choice. Running away costs everything you own. Even after paying that price, survival in the new world is never a certainty.
This is Anatomy of Sleep on the Floor, a masterpiece on the terrifying cost of starting over. If you want to unpack the structural secrets and the deep storytelling behind your favorite music every single week, make sure to hit the subscribe button. I'll see you on the next Blueprint Breakdown.